Hello, everyone. Welcome. It has been a while, so welcome back to our live stream here with Moving to Georgia. I am Sarah Maslowski with KeyPoint Homes Group, local real estate agent right here in the North Metro Atlanta area, and I am very excited to be here with you today because there is a lot to talk about, a lot of changes that are permanently going to change the way the real estate market works forever until they introduce some more big changes. So thank you for being here tonight. Share with me where you're watching from. I'd love to say hello and love to see how far we reach into the world. So first off, how is the weather where you are? I have got to tell you that we have what happening right here in the North Metro Atlanta area of what's called false fall. And that is when you get a little bit of a teaser of fall, but it's not really fall yet, but you feel it and you want it, but then you know it's going to be really hot uh, in just a few days. So this morning, like the weather was in the low 60s, and right now it's like in the high 70s, low 80s. It feels amazing out. So I am going to go and enjoy sitting out on my back patio after this is over and enjoy a non-humid day here in Georgia. So we have a great weather week this week, but looking at next week, we're back up into the 90s. So again, false fall, but it gives you some really great things to look forward to. So welcome to the live stream. Let me know where you are tuning in from. If you have any questions about making a move or the real estate market, I'm here today to answer that or hopefully find you some really good answers for your questions. So let's talk about what is changing in the real estate market. Let me know if you're watching this. Are you aware of any changes? Are you clueless? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Do you kind of know what's going on? I just got off the phone call with a client who said, I don't understand this and no one seems to understand this. Can you help me with this? And I was like, yes, I can. That's what I'm here for. And what great timing, because going here live to tell y'all all about the changes. But I would love to know if you've heard anything about it, because it's really important and it's going to change how real estate is done. Lone One, thank you for joining tonight on here. Always happy for your support. Oh, we got Mike from Johns Creek. Yes, you are enjoying the weather. So you're here locally and you know exactly how it feels right now, which is amazing. All right, so let's talk about the changes in the real estate market. So recently, well, if you remember late last year, the National Association of Realtors had a lawsuit brought against some plaintiffs, and the result of that is it ended up in a settlement. But essentially, the plaintiffs, the sellers, were suing the National Association of Realtors, saying that there was price collusion and price fixing with the way real estate agents are paid. As a result of the settlement that came out of this, is a lot of changes that are going to make some significant impacts for you as a buyer and as a seller. And it's important that you know about these. Oh, we've got another local here. Thomas, watching from Woodstock. Jane, you're all the way down in Florida. Oh my gosh, 108. That's miserable. And you're going to be enjoying this great Georgia weather here very, very, very soon. So I'm excited for y'all. But so the changes that came a result of that NAR settlement is this. They want everyone to know that real estate agents' commissions are negotiable. So because they want everyone to know that it's negotiable, we now have a great new form that you as buyers and sellers get to sign that essentially spell out in very clear language how your agent is getting paid, whether that's on the selling side or whether that's on the buying side. Now, typically, well, why is this changing? It's changing because, again, the settlement or the plaintiffs in the lawsuit felt like there was price fixing going on with what real estate agents are paid. Traditionally, a seller has compensated the buyer's brokerage whenever they bring a ready, willing, and able buyer. That is why you have heard in the past that it's free to have an agent on the buy side. Well, it was free because typically a seller was paying that buyer's agent compensation. And what that seller could pay for the buyer's agent compensation has always been negotiable. If you look across the country, there's varying rates of typical commissions or what are paid. However, it's up to each individual agent of what they choose to negotiate between a listing agent and the seller. And then typically that listing agent will then take the compensation that they've negotiated and they choose to offer some of that to the buying side because they want to attract as many buyers as possible to the house. And so that's typically how your buyer's agents have gotten paid in the past, from the listing agent sharing the amount that they've negotiated and giving that to the selling side, which is actually the buying side. So now, whenever a agent goes to sell a client's house, instead of that listing agent negotiating their fee, they are saying, hey, this is how much as a listing agent I'm going to get paid. Now let's talk about how much do we want to offer on the buying side. So the listing agent and the client, the seller, they're having those conversations. Now, the seller can still choose to offer compensation to a buying side. That's still 100% up for grabs. And think about it. If you are a seller, don't you want to have as many buyers as possible look at your house? Yes, you want to attract the most amount of people so that you can get the highest and best price for your home. So it's still in a seller's best interest to make sure that they are offering something to the buying side. Now, oh, sorry, messing up my buttons on the back end. So let's just talk about how agents get paid. Going forward, there are 3 ways a buyer's agent can get paid. The first one, the seller pays the fee. So your agent is going to tell you, hey, here's the fee that myself and my brokerage charge for my services. This is what I get paid. And here are the 3 different ways that I can get that compensation. 1, the seller's going to pay that fee completely. Another option is that the seller can pay some of those fees and the buyer can make up the difference if there's a gap. And then the third way is the buyer pays the entire fee. Now, when the buyer pays the entire fee, we're assuming that the seller is not offering anything in compensation. Now, previously to the rule change, you as a buyer could look on Zillow and see what a seller was offering in terms of buyer compensation. That has completely gone away. So it's a little bit counterintuitive when they're trying to make something more transparent, but yet they're taking away the transparency. Doesn't make sense to me, but these are the new rules. So on the MLS system, the agents have access to. On the back end, we could see, hey, 123 Main Street, they are wanting to pay the buyer's agent this amount of money or this percentage to bring a willing, ready, and able buyer to go under contract and close. That has gone away. So now that information is not anywhere to be found unless, as an agent, we reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, is your seller offering any buyer's brokerage compensation? They can say, yes, the seller's offering X percent. They can say B, the seller's willing to negotiate it, put it in the offer. Or they can say C, no, the seller's not offering anything. And that is how we get back to either the seller pays the fee, the seller pays some of the fee, and the buyer pays the remainder. Or in the case where a seller is not offering any compensation to a buyer's agent, that is how it ends up getting placed solely on a buyer. Now, this does not mean, let's just say that a seller is offering less in fees than what your agent is charging. This does not mean that you can't still negotiate that as part of the offer. 100% you can still negotiate that. What is changing on the back end is that I, as an agent now, am having conversations with my buyers prior to us go out and look at homes and say, okay, out of the 5 houses today that we are seeing, all of them are covering the fee that I charge with the exception of this one house, which is offering X amount. Do you still want to see this home? Because you as a buyer, you're completely in charge of how the transaction goes and what you want to see and what you want to pay and not pay. So it's always going to be back on you as a buyer to guide that conversation and guide that decision making of what you want to do. So I feel like that's very confusing. And let me know in the comments what you think about this, what questions you have, if you need more clarity around that. But at the end of the day, you as a buyer have to have, even before any agent, whether it's an agent that you know that you've been working with for a while, whether it's an agent that you call up on Zillow, please don't do that. Any agent that you go see a house with has to have some sort of written agreement with you, giving you permission to show them that house. And that written agreement has to say how that agent that you're working with is going to get paid. And in a lot of ways, this is good for you as a consumer, right? Because you want to make sure at the end of the day, this agent isn't showing you a house that then you're now going to be responsible for paying that agent, but you didn't know that up front, right? So that is something that is going to be clearly explained in a document. Another important thing to know before you sign that document is, are you signing a document just to see that one house? Or are you signing a document that enters into it in a representation agreement with that agent? A representation agreement says, hey, here's a time period on this contract document that we're about to sign, let's say 2 or 3 months. And this covers that entire 3-month period for any of the homes that I go show you. Whenever you sign that, technically, you are in agreement that that person is your agent. So really be careful before you go out and sign any representation agreements to make sure that you feel comfortable and capable that you are in great hands with the agent that you've chosen and that they know what they're doing. Now, at the end of the day, I'll use myself as an example. Whenever I work with clients to go see houses, we are going to enter into that representation agreement. I want to know that I'm investing my time in you and providing a really great service, and that at the end of the day, I'm going to help you buy a house, and that's how I'm going to get compensated. Because as agents, we don't get compensated at all until there is a house at the end of the deal that closes. Oftentimes, I work with a lot of great clients who ultimately, for whatever reason, it just ends up not being the right time, or circumstances change, or they change their mind and they decide this isn't the right place for them. And that's okay. So there's a lot of times where we don't get paid for the work we do. And so I would enter into that agreement. If there's ever a time period where I have a client reach out to me, which, knock on wood, this has not happened, that says, hey, I don't feel like we're a good fit for each other anymore. I would like to work with another agent. Can you please release me from this agreement? 100%. We would document that in an email, some sort of written correspondence to release you from that agreement. However, and this is very important, technically, I don't have to release you from that agreement. I could say, no, I'm holding you hostage as my client for the time period that we have set forth on this document. So just be really, really, really careful before you sign any documents, just to make sure that you're in a great relationship or that you know who you're working with. I know Zillow is rolling out like a 1-week representation agreement for clients that they say, hey, we'll work for free during this 1 week for you. I would question you at the end of the day, what agent, reputable agent, knowledgeable agent, an agent that does this full time and has full-time knowledge of the market would do that for complete free without some sort of agreement of like, hey, I'm your agent now. Now, of course, if we're meeting for the first time, there's a great house that's on the market that you really want to see, there's ways to work around this without going into a 2 or 3 month agreement. But at the end of the day, just really be careful and make sure that you understand before you sign any paperwork. But you are going to have to sign something to see houses from now on. So whatever agent you work with, wherever that is, when they say, hey, before we go see these houses, I'm going to send this document over to you because I need for you to sign it because it gives me permission to show you the house. 100% legit. That is the way buying a house is now until there's future changes across the nation. So Thomas asked, so the buyer does not only have to deal with high interest rates, now we also need to deal with a part of agent fee. Not sure why I would just have to pay this as a buyer. Could this be a deal breaker? You just made the perfect argument for why it's still in seller's best interest, that if they want to sell their house, it's in their best interest to still offer a fee, a compensation to a buyer's agent. Now, I will say in practice, sellers are still offering this. So even here in the area, we have been working with these new documents, especially on the selling side, for the past 2 months here in the Metro Atlanta area. And the conversation among agents is that not many agents have had a seller saying, okay, I'm not going to pay anything. So what I'm seeing, Thomas, is that this is likely, we'll see how it plays out, but this is likely a lot of fear and anxiety over something that common sense is going to prevail. And sellers are going to say, yes, I want as many people to see my house because I want a great buyer, and I don't want, to burden them even further with additional fees and make them not see my house when the house down the street is offering a compensation to the buyer's agent, making it such that that buyer doesn't have to pay. Does that make sense? So we'll see that. I've also had scenarios in the past where a seller has offered less than my fee. We've negotiated it into an offer. The seller never blinked an eye, and it was a win-win for everybody at the end of the day. So very good question. So if I plan to go at any open houses, I need to check who is going to pay agent fees up front, okay, that is a great question too, because it's confusing. So the National Association of Realtors, through the settlement, did come out and say that open houses are a little bit different. So an agent can still hold an open house, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you are bound to that agent or whoever's there holding the house open. But if that house is something that you're interested in, it is in your best interest to ask up front, is the seller offering compensation? And there's a specific form that we have here in Georgia called a pre-showing commission agreement that outlines, like, here's what the seller is offering and here's where it's documented in a legal document. So most open houses should have that on display now. I'll tell you, a lot of agents are struggling with these changes, or some of them don't even really know a whole lot about these changes that are going into effect. So if you go to an open house and an agent and you ask this question, they're like, I have no clue what you're talking about. It's okay. We'll get what you need. Or the agent that you choose to work with will get what you need, but I would make sure to ask that information. So just know that you cannot find anywhere publicly on an MLS system or Zillow what a seller is offering for compensation. However, and again, make this make sense. I don't get it. But as an agent on my personal website, I can put on my own listings that I'm selling, I can put on there what compensation a seller is offering. It just cannot be on what's called an IDX feed, which is how Zillow gets all their listings, how Redfin gets all their listings. They pull that from the MLS system and it aggregates out to all these websites. On all of those types of websites, you are not allowed to display it. But if it's the listing agent's own website, they can display it. So that is why it is so important going forward that I think working with a seasoned real estate agent is going to become so important, because there's a lot of back end work that is now going to go into just even getting you into houses and make sure that you're fully informed of what your potential financial responsibilities are, if any. And you need a full-time agent that does this at a really high level to make sure that they can stay organized and stay up to date on all that information and get it to you in a timely manner and still be able to make sure that you're not overpaying for a house and all the things, right? It's a lot. Okay, so Lone One says, wait, how could you hold someone hostage even if a person wants to cut ties? So when you enter into a buyer brokerage engagement agreement, That's what it's called here in Georgia. Other states call it different things. When you enter into that agreement, that is a legally binding contract agreement between you as a buyer and the brokerage with the agent that's representing that brokerage. And what that's saying is saying like, hey, this brokerage is going to represent you as a buyer, and here are the terms of that. It's for a period of however long is in the contract. Here's how the brokerage is going to get paid. Now, in the event that you don't have a good experience or just feel like it's better for you to go work with someone else and you want to get out of that agreement, this is my stance. Personally, as an agent, I would never want to work with someone who doesn't want to work with me, and the fact that I want you to have a good experience. So obviously I'm not living up to that. And two, I want to still keep a good name in this industry. So I want you to have a great experience. So if that's with someone else, then that's what it needs to be. So me personally, I would say, great, have fun, best of luck. And however, technically a brokerage could say, okay, that's fine. You don't want to work with Sarah, but you have this agreement between yourself and the brokerage. We're going to put you with Sally. She's a great agent. Now you're with Sally until the expiration of that agreement. Now, most reputable brokerages would not hold you to that because, again, they don't want the bad ill will out there. They don't want you talking negatively, sharing your experiences on the internet and reviews, that sort of thing. So it's in everyone's best interest to mutually agree to part ways. But technically, the brokerage could hold you hostage. There's lots of brokerages out there and there's lots of agents out there. Jan says, has selling slowed down because of these changes, interest rates, and the election? So the good thing is that we'll get to interest rates here in a second, but the good thing is that it's only been in effect for 4 or 5 days now. And a lot of agents have already been acting as if this is happening. And so we have not heard any horror stories or the market hasn't melted down or agents haven't had a meltdown. Nothing has changed really with buyers. It's kind of just been crickets here, which is a good thing because that means this is likely all a big to-do about nothing, and it's a bunch of extra paperwork for everybody. So we have not seen an impact show up. Now, I'm going to keep you abreast of this and up to date, so I'll keep updating you on what I'm seeing in the market and other agents that I talk to. So that's something. Overall, though, yes, home sales have slowed down, and a large part that has been impacted by interest rates. So let's take a look at interest rates. We reached a all-time high, right? Let's say all-time for most recently in the time period that we can remember of higher interest rates, much higher back in the 80s. But in May of this year, we reached a peak at 7.22%. And you can see that since May, we've kind of been on a steady-ish decline. So this is good. This is what we thought was going to happen. And you can see that we had a big drop in August. And so this was just happened a few weeks ago. I'll say that me personally, most of my clients are seeing interest rates around 6.3%, 6.25, depending upon credit scores, down payment, all that kind of good things. So this is great news. We're getting a little bit more in making homes more affordable territory. And the reason that we had that bump down in interest rates was because of job labor data that came out, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, showing that hiring has drastically slowed, which impacts inflation numbers. And that's what the Fed wants. They want to bring down inflation. So it was like a positive sign that the tools that the Fed are using are having a positive impact on inflation. And so the markets reacted by, okay, this is great news, and interest rates have started to come down in anticipation of the Fed dropping the interest rates in September, because they essentially said that they were going to. All convoluted. Long story short, to tell you that we've probably seen the biggest drop we're going to see in terms of basis points or percentage from 6.75 to about 6.5, so about 1/4 of a percentage. And we're still going to see some small movements up and down throughout the rest of the year in a downward trend, because of the election, because of the inflation, because what goes up must come down, right? So the good news is interest rates are coming down. Bad news is, kind of bad news. We aren't really seeing a whole lot of buyers over the past couple of weeks like flood into the market now that interest rates have dropped a little bit. And that could be for a whole host of different reasons, right? You mentioned the election. So it all depends on your personal preference and personal outlook. In a live or in a video, I guess it was this one that posted last week, talked about how elections impact interest rates and housing markets, and it's a mixed bag, right? So it depends on your personal viewpoints. I know here in Georgia, we start school back in the beginning of August. That's a stressful time for a lot of families, and a lot of people are like, I don't have time to focus on house hunting. I just need to focus on getting my kids back to school and getting into the new routine. So we typically see a slowdown here in our market in August already. So as always, very long-winded answer to your question is that yes, we have seen home sales slow down, and I think this is only going to be for a brief period in time, which is why if you are a buyer in this time period right now, you have a very, very unique opportunity to negotiate a better deal than what you normally would be able to get, because homes are sitting longer, sellers are not getting as many showings of what they're used to. They're kind of panicking a little bit, not necessarily a bad way, but in just a normal way, because this is a very different market than what we've seen over the past 4 years. And they're like, oh, I need to sell. And typically the people that we're seeing put their homes on the market right now are because they have to sell. So they want to sell their house. So it's a great opportunity for you as a buyer to negotiate a better deal. So keep that in mind as you are in the market right now. I was in a mastermind group today with some top agents, and the conversation was, I have really great houses that are sitting right now that aren't getting a whole lot of showings, and we've done some price drops, and I don't know what else to do. What this means is that you as a buyer can come along, and I'm not saying like drastically undercut them, but you as a buyer can likely negotiate a little bit of a better deal because of the situation that a seller is in right now. Keep that in mind. Now, caveat, there are little pockets here in the area where homes are still going under contract within 24 hours, multiple offers, all the things. So it is really unique to an area. So keep that in mind. But when you have a great agent like me to help guide you through this, and I'm going to give you all the best expert advice to help you make the most informed decision. Jane said, do you recommend having an open house when selling? Do they actually help sell? Yes. A lot of real estate agents will say holding an open house doesn't sell your home. It never works. It's because they're lazy. They don't want to hold an open house, or they don't want to have an agent hold the open house. I've personally sold homes directly from the open house before, but even if it doesn't get sold at the open house, here's why it works, is because Zillow and other websites favor houses that have open houses. It gives them something to promote. You as a seller want your home in front of as many people as possible all the time, because one of those people that sees your home is going to be your buyer. So if holding an open house gets you first place placement on Zillow, Redfin, all those websites that buyers are looking at, that means more eyeballs on your listing, which is a great thing for you as a seller. So that's the conversation that I have with my sellers, is that we may or may not sell your open house or during an open house, but it is definitely going to get us more eyes on the home, which is ultimately what we need in order to attract the most amount of buyers. If you're in a competitive area where there's really low inventory and homes are still selling pretty quickly, an open house can be a very great thing for a seller, because it allows you to get a lot of people through your house that otherwise would be scheduling showings all throughout the day. And it allows, 20 groups of people to come through in a few hours versus 20 different appointments where you're having to leave your house. So obviously in those situations, the buyer is coming through the open house, but that's likely the buyer that would have scheduled a showing anyways. Okay. John says, continue your content. I'm from Florida. If my kids were older, I would have moved to Georgia. Well, I knock on wood, I have not had any people that have moved with kids whose also kids have not really loved it here. Oh, you would have moved. Well, anyways, it's not too late to move to Georgia. That's all I'm saying. We can make it work. Sloopy says, I've been ready to buy for 2 months, but the market has been terrible. I love that name. Sloopy, kind of like Snoopy, but sleepy and just rolls off the tongue. I would love to know where you're looking and what price point, that sort of thing. If it's not in my area, I'd love to connect you with a really great agent, because even in challenging markets or situations, things can still get done in the right way. So what I mean is that you may be hearing, headlines right now of, it's a terrible time to buy. The market's down. Interest rates are expensive. But yet what I'm seeing is you just put several buyers under contract where we negotiated $20,000 off the list price, and the appraisal came in $50,000 over what we paid. Those are situations that I'm seeing that if we only kind of looked at the headlines or what other people were saying, it would not be true. So I'm not saying that you haven't been trying. I don't know your situation, but I would love to help. So my contact information is below this video, and there's a link there where we can schedule a call and we can talk it through. And that reminds me, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, to the channel. That helps get you updated. We put out a video every single Monday, giving you all the latest and greatest that you need to know, keeping you up to date on the market, all the new developments that are happening in town, what neighborhoods you need to know about, just giving you everything you need to know here about North Atlanta. Okay, so let's get back to your comments. Wait, who actually makes the prices of the houses? Good question. So sellers would like to think that they can make the prices for the houses, but ultimately in the day, it's the market, right? Supply and demand. And this is a good reason why home prices haven't fallen drastically with high interest rates. And that's because we had not that many people selling their house. Still, more people wanted to buy than inventory was out there. And so people were willing to pay whatever the price is dictated. That's what the market said. Now we're seeing home prices fall a little bit because the seller tried selling it at this price of what they thought the market was, but yet no one's coming to buy their house. They're not getting the showings. They're not getting offers. Therefore, that's the market saying, hey, you're priced too much. Otherwise, if they were priced right, you would have lots of showings and you would have offers and you would be under contract within 2 weeks. So the market could also be saying your home is in a really crappy condition, or it's in a really crappy location and we're not paying that price for it. In some of those instances, you can fix up your house to match what the market wants. You can't change the location of it. So you can only control what you can control, which is usually the condition of your home and the price. So at the end of the day, the market sets the price, but what a great listing agent is going to do is study what other homes have recently sold for in the neighborhood of what the market paid for those houses, and come back to the seller and say, hey, here's what your neighbor's home sold for. Here's how yours is different, bigger, smaller. Here's the adjustments we need to make. And here's what we believe the ranges of value of what the market would pay for your house. So that is a good thing. Inflation is not where Feds want it yet. We are at 2.9%. Not sure if this rates will go further down. So I think we're slowly getting there. When you take out housing as a part of the numbers that go into inflation, we're there. But yet housing affordability still remains the biggest headache. But all the other factors are kind of getting us there. But yeah, you're right. I'm not sure that we'll ever reach that target number that the Fed wants. This might just be a new normal. But the good thing is that interest rates are responding and getting a little bit lower. Saul, are homes still selling over asking? Is the market cooling down, or is it still pretty hot? Great question. And like I just mentioned a little bit ago, it's depends on the area. It depends on the house, the condition. Homes in Alpharetta, Milton, in great shape at a high desirable price point. I say high desirable, like meaning highly desired price point. $700,000 house in Alpharetta, in great condition, move-in ready, photographs beautifully, looks like it kind of came out of a magazine or on an HGTV show. That house is going to sell for multiple offers over asking price, even if other similarly sold homes sold for that same price. And that's because there's not hardly any homes available for $700,000 in that condition, in that area, for that price that's more affordable for Alpharetta. So it all depends on the area. Now, other towns coming, Gainesville, Brazelton, some houses in Swanee, those are sitting a little bit longer. And again, this is why it's such a great opportunity right now for buyers to get in while the getting's good, as we say, because my expectation is, and others' expectation is that after the winter, January, February, buyers are still going to see the interest rates are trickling down and they're continuing to head down. And they're going to say, oh, we need to jump on it. And then all of a sudden you've got way more buyers and you can't negotiate those prices anymore. So great question. Ooh, what are my thoughts on the city of Mulberry? How will that impact the housing market for that area specifically? So there's a lawsuit challenging the city of Mulberry. So city of Mulberry is a newly proposed city in the northeastern corner of Gwinnett. It's an area that is having a lot of development, a lot of apartment complexes, a lot of neighborhoods going in, and the citizens there in that area felt like, hey, we're part of Gwinnett County, which is huge. We don't really have any representation for this area that's going through explosive growth, and we want more local representation. So put forth through the government of Georgia, the state government. It went through the House and the Senate. It got approved, and then they got put up for a local vote. Voters in that area voted, yes, we want our own city. Now there's legal challenges with Gwinnett. I think it's going to be a little bit before this gets worked out. I do think having a little bit more local control there would be a good thing. However, services like fire, EMS, schools, part of the charter agreement is that that's still going to stay with Gwinnett County. So that's not really going to impact. I just think what will impact is you get a new cool name for a city for an address. So to be determined. I'm not quite sure. Let's see here. John, I just got a 0.75 acre lot being sold to me for $140,000 in Alpharetta. Thinking of building now that you mentioned pricing of $700,000. Yes. If you have land in Alpharetta, it would be a great thing to sell that, because there's not a whole lot of land, or there's hardly any land left at all in Alpharetta. And so oftentimes I have clients that reach out to me and they say, hey, we want new construction. We want to be in Alpharetta, and this is our budget. And I'm like, okay, cool. We got to go look somewhere completely different, because that's just not possible. However, when I do find new construction that fits their criteria, oftentimes they don't understand the pricing behind it. And what I mean by that is it's someone like John who has a lot that they have to sell, and it might be on a street or on a busy street where it's maybe not the most desirable place that you would want to build a house, but yet there's an available piece of land to build a house. And so oftentimes any new construction, single family homes that you see in Alpharetta are going to be next to other things that you may not have been your first choice to build a house, but yet the pros outweigh the cons. So oftentimes when I work with clients, I'm like, hey, is it important for you to be in a neighborhood? And if it is, then new construction in certain areas may not be the best option for you, because likely those new construction homes are just going to be on a road, not in a neighborhood. So good questions. Can I elaborate on why Swanee has deals? Also, I'm planning to buy in the fall, so hoping the prices would drop lower. Do you think this is a good plan? I wouldn't necessarily say Swanee has deals, because typically Swanee is a very desired area, just as is coming, because of great schools, proximity to amenities, jobs, all that kind of thing. I think right now you can find a little bit more negotiation in these areas just because of the market conditions. And in my opinion and expectation is that there's a very small window of time that you as a buyer have to take advantage of these homes that are a little bit slower right now. And you mentioned the fall. So it's August right now. A typical closing time period in Georgia is 30 days. So on average, it takes a buyer 1 to 2 weeks of serious house hunting, depending upon how long you're in town or if you're local, to find the right house. And so you add 30 days, let's add another 2 weeks. We're now at 6 weeks in. Well, 6 weeks from now, we're in fall. So I definitely think that you have a great opportunity. And if that is your plan, I would go ahead and start that process now, or at least becoming familiar with the market, with the houses, so that you can identify what is a good deal. And I say a good deal, I don't want you to think that you're going to get a $600,000 house for $525. It's not going to happen. You're just going to be able to negotiate either a chunk of seller paid closing costs that you can do a rate buy down, or you're going to be able to keep more money in your pocket because you're getting the seller to cover all of the closing costs, or you're going to be able to negotiate $25,000 off. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. And if you were probably to take the same house, again, without having a crystal ball, but all the factors that we know now, if you were to wait and sell that house in March or April of next year, you're likely paying $600, if not $615, $620 for that house because of competition. So I would not get caught up on interest rates right now, because as a buyer, you are going to be able to refinance and take advantage of whatever interest rates come along in the future. You can't go back and change the price that you paid for the house. So you can control the price now, and you get to have the ability to control the interest rate in the future. It's a good question. As a buyer, could I not offer a flat fee to my agent? And as a seller, could I not offer a closing cost incentives to cover the buyer's agent fee? Great question. Completely negotiable on either side. You can do whatever you want to do. As a seller, yes, you can offer concessions. You can say up front, I'm offering X amount percentage of the sale of my home towards a buyer's agent. I'm only offering $1,000. You can set it however you want. On the buying side, you could offer a flat fee to your agent, but you have to remember that before you go see any houses with your agent, you and that agent are sitting down and coming up with an agreement on how that agent is getting paid. And it has to be very explicit. It can't say up to X amount of dollars. It can't say whatever the seller is offering. It has to be very clear what that agent is getting paid. And as agents, we, in consultation with you or not, are setting what that agent, what I choose to charge for my services and my, services that I offer to clients, and how I'm getting compensated for that. So you could choose to work with an agent and say, hey, I only want to pay you, let's say $2,000. And also that agent could say, okay, well then I'm not the right agent for you. So that's something that you might experience or talk through, and there's some pros and cons to all of those things, right? So, but the point of all of this is that at the end of the day, although it is negotiable, your doctor's office, that's negotiable, right? And a doctor could say, no, this is what I charge for my services. This is what I charge. An attorney, their fees are technically negotiable. And yet they can say, nope, here's my hourly rate and here's what I charge. So just keep that in mind. Have you ever had someone buy a house outright in cash? Yes. So I need to find the stat, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But at the height of COVID, it was something like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 houses that were sold in the United States were sold in cash, meaning cash buyers. So there is a huge amount of wealth that a lot of people have, either because they've invested in real estate, they have great families, they've worked really hard, invested well, and saved up well. But you would be surprised at how much cash there is out there in real estate transactions, which obviously makes it a lot easier, and majority of the population doesn't fall into that category. Let's see. So I just wanted to share this with y'all. And y'all have had some great questions tonight. So thank you for asking. These are really amazing questions. And if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, let me know. But I just wanted to show you home prices are moderating, meaning that they're not falling. They're moderating. So what this represents is, if you look between January of 2022, this was year over year change in home prices. So not necessarily devaluation in home prices, but how much home prices were increasing. So we are definitely slowing down in home price appreciation, not necessarily that homes are being devalued. So in January of 2022, homes were almost 20% more expensive than they were in January of 2021. Fast forward that to, let's say, May of 2024, homes are only about 5% more than what they would have sold for the year before. So that's a great thing, because you as buyers, we can't live in a world of real estate where homes are appreciating 20% year over year every single year. We are now getting back more into a normal market, which is what we need. We need this normal market to kind of help stabilize everything and bring more stability to the market. So those cash buyers are all big banks. Yes and no. So there were a lot of institutions coming in and big private equity firms buying up a lot of rental properties and things like that. So yes, that did account for a lot. And yet there's a ton of personal buyers, buying homes with cash. And we saw it all the time, especially during the height of 2021 and 2022, where oftentimes the first question that I had to ask a listing agent whenever I had a client that wanted to make an offer on a home is, how many cash offers do you have? And these are homes that are not going to be investor type houses. These are $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 homes, even $500,000 homes. Oftentimes we were competing against at least one, if not multiple, cash offers. Okay, so another thing to note is looking at how interest rates impact your affordability for a house. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, right, to figure out that lower interest rates mean more affordability. But I thought this chart is a great way to kind of look at this. And so let's just look at the middle column, $450,000 house. In May of this year, that $450,000 house at a 7% interest rate would have cost you just under $3,000, that $2,994. Now we've got interest rates all the way around 6.25%. So that make it $2,771. So just $200 difference that you're saving in a matter of a few months, every single month on your monthly payment. Now let's go back and look at that 7% number, that $2,994. Let's say that you're okay with that in your budget. You're okay with spending that. What will that $2,994 get you? Well, if we go to what interest rates are around 6.25% now, you can now afford, instead of a $450,000 house, you could now go look at a $490,000 house and still keep your payment pretty much the same. There's about a $20 difference there. So that's a great way to kind of look at it to make that impact. So keep in mind that the more interest rates fall, the more and more and more buyers are going to come into the market, because now they can afford better houses. They can afford more options that are out there in the marketplace, which is why we have a limited amount of time out there, y'all, to get and negotiate a good deal, because as these interest rates keep nudging down, more and more buyers can now afford a better house. Now it's making it affordable for them to quit renting. Now they can go buy. More buyers means more competition, driving prices up. We get it, right? So just some things to keep in mind as you are trying to figure out how to make sense of all of this great information that you have, and trying to navigate what is the real estate market. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Have any thoughts, opinions? If you're watching this and you're a buyer, I'd love to know kind of what you think about the changes that are now in place and what you're going to be experiencing as a buyer. Does this make it scary? Does it not scary? Do you think it's more important now to have a trusted agent? Yeah, just let me know how you feel. It's all still kind of new for us too, but at the end of the day, my services, what I do for clients, it's not changing. It's still the same thing that I've been doing. It's just now I've got to have more opportunities to have great conversations around all the changes and some additional legal forms that we have to sign now as well. So if you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. New videos every single Monday, every other week. I'm here with you live on Wednesdays, answering all of your great questions and telling you everything that is new in the market that you need to know. And with the exception of if I'm traveling for work, or one of these days I'm going to travel for fun. I have a birthday coming up in September. So my goal is to do a little trip at the end of September. And I want to go to Yosemite. I don't know if anybody watching has been to Yosemite National Park, but looks beautiful. And that seems like a bucket list item that I need to get checked off soon. Loan one, you have a great question here. What's the average down payment that is needed to make an impact? Obviously, the more money you put down, the better, because that's going to lower your monthly payment. And there are programs where you can put down as little as 3%, 3.5%, but really you kind of need 3.5% as the minimum down payment to not make it like drastically expensive. So that's a great question. Yeah. Thank you, Saul. I am turning the big 4-0 in September. So I'm excited. I don't think I've ever enjoyed life more than what I do right now. So I'm excited what's ahead and hoping to plan a big little trip to cap that off. So if you have any tips for me about Yosemite and you're watching this after the live stream, let me know in the comments, because I need all the information. I'm just scrolling TikTok at night right now, watching Yosemite videos. If you're not following me on Instagram, go over there and follow me. We've got some great content coming out for you about everything locally that's happening and opening, and new stores and restaurants and developments that are coming to the area. So if you're thinking about moving here or you're local, go follow me over on Instagram. I'd love to have you over there and would love your input on everything that's happening in the area. So thanks for joining me tonight. I will see y'all on the next live stream, and I hope y'all have a great evening. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on the next video.